Hey everybody, on here coming to you with this month's Connecting Codes video, and I'm looking at the insights for September. What do we have coming up in September? What can we expect? What's going to be in the forefront in our world events? For those that don't know much about me or my work, and you're just kind of tuning in for the first time, I am on the road right now, a little over halfway through the tour for this year. Excited about that. It's been a long journey so far, but I'm also excited. But my work that I do is this book right here, The Code Journey. And every year I put out a new edition. By the way, I just released the 2024 edition, so it's available. If you hop over to my website, compassioncodes.com, go to the Goods tab, look under the Code Journey, and you'll see the links. Those links will get you directly to the purchase pages for those are waiting, have been waiting for the book to come out. And it seems sometimes like it's an early release, releasing the next edition in 2024, but dealing with the stores, they need to get that book in. And so I have to release it early enough for them to get it in for a full season for selling. And you'll also find their stores, there may be a store near you that will carry the book, and you can pick it up in person if you don't want to purchase online. Some states there isn't a place, and online is it. I'm always looking at new possibilities and new options for things, but wanted to let you know that is out. 2024 is out, so I'm excited. I have books being shipped to me on the road, which is always an interesting task, but hey, it's there, it's happening, and it's always exciting when that new edition comes out. So what do we have coming down now in September? What can we expect to surface up and be coming into the news, be coming into what people are going to be talking about, who's going to be in the limelight? And keep in mind, in this code journey work, this is original work blending over 50 different modalities, none of which are used in the traditional way. But I have a gift for understanding what the currents are. And through understanding what the currents are, it helps me to see the things that are going to be on the forefront, the things that are going to be happening, the things that are going to be coming down the pike. And that's where the book really comes in handy, because it gives a little more detail on things. It helps you to make those connections. We have multiple layers of things that are happening, from what's going on in the year energy to what's happening in the month energy and so on. So these videos focus on the month energy right now. Every now and then I'll put something else out, but I haven't done that in a while. It's been, especially when I'm on the road, just getting the monthly stuff out is a lot. So when we start to look into September, and again, this is not a predictive thing. It's not like saying this exact person is going to have this incident happen this way, but it does bring the pieces together for you to kind of say, oh, okay, so this is going to come up. This is what I need to be paying attention to. These are the key areas that are going to be focused on. And when we know that, that kind of gives us a little bit of foresight. So it helps us to understand, okay, if riots are going to come up, if violence are going to come up, then maybe that's not the time to, be in a protest. Or, if whether things are coming up, is that natural? Is it not natural? Things like this. And what do we need to pay attention to? And that kind of also, if you are out there researching things, helps you to know what direction to go towards, where to pull the information from, what maybe cue in some words to research or to Google or whatever on there. So when we start looking at September, and you may have noticed from the title, humanitarian things are going to be coming up. But first, one of the key things is that we've got this blend, and this happens a lot, where we have a blend that there are some good things that are coming up, some things that are affirming we're on the right track, and then there's other things that are coming up that is in retaliation to that, or the hardships or the backlash or the corrupt plans going into motion. And we have to keep in mind there's always both in motion at the same time. And one of the biggest keys is knowing who's on what side of the fence at which point, because people may start on one place and then go to another place. And we have, like in August, we had these kind of sleepers coming forward. We had, whistleblowers coming out. That was big thing. So, what did we find? We started finding these whistleblowers coming out and people in some of the trials and some of the court cases. And then, of course, with the things going on in Maui and these various things where they are connecting it to the people that were involved in the Las Vegas shootings and that narrative and agenda that was going down. And then you've got also people that were it's kind of like a land grab coming out about it being a land grab because people weren't selling their land, and then suddenly there's fires. And so these things always connect, and the codes also help us connect that. They give us those insights again of is this an integrity, is it not an integrity, what is maybe going to be in the suspicious range. So this month in September, we're going to see efforts paying off. There's going to be exposure coming up, and we've had a lot of exposure this year. That's part of what's in the codes, is a lot of this exposure, truth bubbling up to the surface. And we're going to get more clarity around the lies and the deception and the manipulation that's going on. So there's things that have already come out. We may see more clarity on those things. And that is going to start to show where, okay, look, the efforts are paying off. Like those people that are out there putting the content out all the time, sharing what's really happening, helping you to spot the deep fakes and these sorts of things that are going on, because those deep fakes are getting really, really good out there, and exposing these lies and deception. So this persistent effort, we're going to start seeing the persistent efforts pay off, where people have been persistent in alignment, working with God, with divine source, staying focused on keeping divine presence alive in our world. Then those efforts are going to be paying off. So that's going to be a positive thing and an optimistic thing to give us a little bit of hope, like, oh, something is working out. We may still not like what we see. We may still not like the truth once we see it, but the reality of it is we are getting the clarity, and we are getting down to that truth more and more and more. We're reaching more into that core. And we can see that, yes, by being persistent, by standing our ground, by holding up the right to have our freedoms and things like this, that indeed that is paying off for us. So that is going to, I think, really help a lot of people out in that part of things. Now, humanitarian corruption, that is the big one on the forefront for September. So we're going to see a lot of exposure coming out, a lot of things getting brought to the surface about the lies and the deception behind those humanitarian corporations, how they've been getting used for slush funds, how they've been getting used as a network to kind of funnel and channel money around, and using it to avoid taxes. So I think a lot of this is going to come out, and that's going to be a big thing. And this is going to be bringing up, as that exposure comes up, it's going to bring a lot of failure and ruin to these kind of false organizations and these corruptions, and it's going to make people think twice. So think about your philanthropic organizations. Who runs those? A lot of these are run by Gates, by Clintons, by the Obamas. Think of organizations like Planned Parenthood, that was started by Bill Gates' father, Greenpeace, World Wildlife Fund, PETA, a lot of zoos, how they're tied into this. Think of all of these things, and even though we don't like to think of things like Audubon Society, Sierra Club, things like that, most of them are tied into these political agendas. Most of them are being fed major funds by, like, the Gates organization or these different foundations that are out there. So they come in and they want you to believe, look at all this good we're doing in the world. Look at how we're helping people. I mean, it's like Bill Gates coming in and saying, oh, look at how we're providing medicine and this and shots and things like that to the African nation. But we've also seen that there's a lot of exposure where that is actually a genocide mission that is happening. It's not about the good of the people at all in Africa. It's not about the good of that culture. It's about extinguishing that culture. And so when we start to look at those pieces, it's like these are not humanitarian things at all. It really reminds me, and you might have seen by the meme that I put up for this video, of that old Twilight Zone series called Serving How to Serve Man, or I think it was How to Serve Man or Serving Man. And they come in, and these aliens come into the planet. If you've never seen the episode, because maybe you're young and you didn't watch the Twilight Zone, look it up and go watch that episode. These aliens come into planet Earth, and they try to make everybody believe that they're on this humanitarian mission. And then the humanitarian mission, and they're like, look, you can, they start selling tickets to go to their planet and to other planets. And it's like a big thing, and everybody's rushing to go to this other planet like it's a big vacation thing. And then this one guy's getting on the plane at the end, and he finds out that they're not they're not there for the benefit of humanity, that this book that they have, this gospel, this kind of Bible, this thing that is about serving humanity, is a cookbook. And humanity has become a food source for other cultures and civilizations. And I find this very interesting because the parallels between what is happening in our world right now and the people that are involved are pretty crazy. There's so many parallels there. This aspect of pretending to be for humanity and then not being for humanity, extinguishing it, using humanity as a commodity. That is happening in our world. If you're on social media, you're being used as a commodity. You're being bought and sold daily, whether you know it or not, and you've given permission to it by simply being on those platforms. And it's hard when you look at people who are content creators, myself, other people, to get information out. You have to be on the platform. So it's really a mixture of where do we draw the lines and where do we hold the corruption. All of these, there's a variety of different components at play, because obviously we want to get information out to you, and at the same time, there's a price to be paid for that, and we become somewhat of a commodity in that process of things. We really want to pay attention in September about words, actions, behavior. These things are going to be remembered by people, and so I call you to be very conscious about it, especially if you are in these truth movements, if you are talking about things, because oftentimes, again, we think we're doing the right thing, we think we're putting good things out there, and yet what we want to do is to focus more than anything on the compassion and the kindness aspect. And I don't mean that in the corrupt terms, I mean that in being compassionate with people, really putting out there that kindness, and you can be firm and you can be strong and you can stand up for your rights, and you can still be kind and you can still be compassionate in that process. And there are points and times where you have to be firmer, but when we are doing that, especially where those who are speaking the truth are being demonized in a lot of ways, when we are putting that kindness and that compassion out through our actions, through our feelings, through our caring about people, it blows those narratives about us not being nice. And so we want to give people that memory that, look, yes, we do care, we do have the freedoms, and we can be kind, and we can do this. And look at those pieces. So really consider, how do you want to be remembered, and be more conscious about being in that space as we're interacting with people and as we're dealing with the world events that are coming up in particular, because that can throw us into a lot of things that lead people to see not the positive side, but the negative side of us and things and situations. So that is something to be conscious of. Now, we really also want to realize that right now we're going to see two different dynamics. Again, this split dynamics thing coming up in September. There are going to be people who are either going to be creating peace or people who are going to be disrupting it. So we want to keep our eyes open on who is doing what, and really look at what's happening. So, for example, just here and I'm kind of coming in because I'm recording this a couple of weeks ahead of time, but Biden comes through and offers these families in Maui, for example, $700 per household. Like this is nothing in in Maui, in Hawaii, and in the expenses of things. $700 per household, but he's selling, millions, billions of dollars over to Ukraine, and he doesn't even have any empathy or consideration or kindness or caring about the people in Maui. And we want to keep in mind that there's several celebrities over there who had homes over there. Um, and those celebrities, their stuff wasn't as impacted as the average person. The primary areas that were impacted were people who were not selling their property out. So when we start to look at these things, we want to pay attention because he's not creating peace by offering families $700. That's a payout. That's an attempted payout. And this is, like a last step bribe. And we've seen this in many cultures, whether we're looking at Native American cultures or indigenous tribes or, cultures on other continents or things like that. We've seen this over and over again of, here, we're going to offer you this price. Oh, you don't want to sell? Okay, now we're going to come in and make your land not as valuable. And so we'll give you now a token offer because you're struggling. And then now that you're struggling, oh, you don't want to take that? Well, we'll just seize your land. So this is all headed towards like land seizure type of things. And, if you look at the path that it's going down, that is not creating peace. That is disrupting peace. So we really want to pay attention. Who is creating peace? We see creating peace is various things where they're saying, well, governments will come up and they'll say, we're not going to do GMOs in our country. We're not going to do this or we're not going to do that. And that creates health. And in turn, that health creates peace. So we want to look beyond just the black and white aspects of it and see the deeper layers of it, is what I'm getting to. Now, the tough thing in September is we're going to see agendas pushed through no matter what the costs are. They don't care what the costs are. And here again, we hit that split, right? Because it's really tough to deal with it when they get to this point and they're starting to hit this desperation. The good thing is it's showing the corruption, are in desperation. When they start getting to the point that they will push something through at all cost, that is a point of desperation. That is a point of not really being in power or control. And when they do that, also, it is going to wake a lot of people up because a lot of people are going, man, this is just way too extreme. This is not reasonable anymore. So what they accepted for a long time is maybe reasonable, or we could live with this, or we could do that. It's not now. We're seeing that where a lot of countries are starting to raise their interest rates and things up so high they're over 100%. In some countries, they're 118%, 125% at the time I'm cutting this video. So looking at that, and you start to go, oh, that's not a good thing, because what happens when you hit 118% interest? What's that going to affect? That's going to affect mortgages, that's going to affect loans, that's going to affect anything and everything pretty much in there. And if people are holding debt, if they struggle to get out of debt or make those monthly payments and just hit the bare minimums, they're not going to be able to do that very soon if the interest rates are going in the direction that they're going. So also that means less interest coming in on an interest earning account. So more cost, lower income, so to say, lower receiving of things. So these agendas are going to get pushed through, and that can get a little scary at times. Hang in there and realize that let it come out. Let it come out, because the more it comes out, when they're in the space again, that's going to wake a lot more people up, and they're going to say, oh my gosh, we really are headed in some of these directions that we thought were just stories or just people making stuff up or exaggerating. And we're going to find out there's not so much exaggeration going on there. So with that, we also want to look at, in this month of September, an increase. We're going to see an increase in trying to persuade people and to get them to act irresponsible under the guise of what is best to do. So here again, here comes the narratives. Oh, this is best for the environment. Oh, this is best for humanity. Oh, if you don't do this, you're a cruel person. So again, we're going to see these kind of narratives coming up. Remember, we had that in the pandemic. Oh, you're a grandma killer if you won't wear a mask. These sorts of things coming up. So again, we're going to see these guilt tactics. We're going to see high persuasion tactics to get things that are based in fear, to get people operating out of fear, because when they operate out of fear, or they believe everybody else is doing this, right? This is why they try things in other countries before America, and they say, see, all these other countries are doing it. Why won't you participate? And it's a guilt tactic and it's a fear tactic when this comes up. And when we operate this way, a lot of times it is not the responsible choice. I mean, we're finding this out about recycling right now, right? That for years we've been separating everything and it all still goes in the landfill. I'm not saying there aren't points and purposes with some things that could be, reused or whatever, but at the same time, a lot of what we've been told is a lie. And so we need to look at these deeper layers. We need to explore them more. We need to research things. It's just like if people had researched things more during the pandemic, they would have found out more about the lies. And now they're bringing the truth out now that things are over and done with, in a sense, bringing the truth out about, these medicines that everybody ridiculed along the way. And now they're saying, oh, yeah, we've been using those for decades. Well, several people researched and realized they had been using it for decades and realized there was a safety thing, realized it could be prescribed, has been prescribed for years and years and years, not just years, but decades, and safely used. So, of course, I'm a person, I don't take medications. It's not my thing, but that doesn't mean there isn't a time and a place for them if they are pure in a sense, and if they're done right, and so on and so forth. Everybody has different things for themselves. But again, that being said, we have to be careful of these persuasion techniques, because the media has a skill for taking something that applies to 1% of the population and making it seem like everybody is doing that. So research in September. Don't allow yourself to be persuaded, especially if your gut is saying, hey, something's wrong here, something doesn't sound right. Especially if there's a lot of pressure or a lot of fear around doing it, if it's putting you in fear. And you're acting out of fear. In other words, like, oh my gosh, if I don't do this, I'm going to be the cause of the world imploding or something like that. Well, in codes, we know that Earth is infinite. Earth is it's not going to be destroyed. It's eternal. It's got an eternal energy to it. I'm not saying there aren't absolutely 100% ways to do it, but it's not the way it's being portrayed. And Earth is going to go on. The question is whether humanity is going to go on. And that's really the bigger fight right now in things. Now, the first through the second, so basically the first 3 weeks of September, successes are going to come in where there is integrity. So where people are actually standing up for the rights, where they're standing in truth, where they're standing in integrity, where they're operating within the law, the true Constitution, things like that. Then there are going to be wins. And again, that's going to provide some encouragement for people. So we want to celebrate those successes. We want to flow with them. But again, don't jump the gun on what gets put out there, because there's a lot in the truther community that they jump the gun on, and they spend down on narratives that are not always true. And there's some people out there that really do that. And so you've got to do your research, and you've got to look a little closer. Corruption stimulates or provokes competition, and beware this division. So what we're going to see is those who are operating the corruption, those who are looking for the control, they're going to come in and they're going to try to stimulate and provoke a division again. So we want to be careful of anything that comes up that pits one group of people against another group of people, that tries to put them in battle, that tries to put them in competition with each other. And we want to stay truth focused. So instead of sitting there going, you guys are this way and you guys are that way, you want to stay centered on provable facts, not just things coming up from this person or that person, but going to the source of things in there. Don't let people divide you. Don't let people provoke you into division with other people. And that's a key thing. We can have differences of opinions. We're going to as humans, and we should, and that can be valuable for us. The difference is that, are they differences or are they dividing us? And that's where we have to watch that that fine line in there. Differences open up conversation, learning, and understanding. Division separates us, pits us against each other, and keeps us busy and distracted while other things are being implemented against us. Both of us, both sides. So that's where you want to watch it. Corruption is going to seek to feel superior at all costs. So again, we're going to see more of that tyrant energy come out, more of the authoritarian energy that's coming out. We're going to see more of that control energy coming out. They're done. It's kind of like they're done playing the games. It's like, well, we're done waiting on you to comply with us. So we're just gonna come in and start boom, boom, boom. So we want to really watch what rules they're making, what things they're trying to pass through the government systems. They want to exercise their power at all cost. And when this happens, that becomes an attack on freedom. Oftentimes that is a huge attack on freedom. So we want to be careful of that. This does not make them good. Just because somebody has power or authority, that doesn't make them good. That doesn't make them wise. That doesn't make them intelligent or knowing or special, or well, they might be special in their own way, but it doesn't make them superior. It doesn't mean that they are a great person or a person to look up to or be followed. So really, really watch that. Seeds are getting planted for future success. And that's one of the things, again, bringing this patience in. When you are working in truth and integrity, you've got to have some patience. And there's always about planting the seeds. So you've got to plant the seeds that will come up later on and realize that they will flourish. They will flourish, they will come. Likewise, we may see some of the seeds that were already planted a while back, some things that were set in motion start coming to fruition, and that ties in with the monthly aspect of efforts paying off. If we've been nurturing those seeds, if we've been, growing them, if we've been working with them, it's like you've got all these things in the court system, right? You've got all these cases in the court system, and they've been going on for quite a while. So those are like seeds that have been planted, and the effort has been putting in to move them through the system. So some of those things will probably come out. We'll probably get more news about the court cases that have been in motion for several months or years even, and start seeing the results of that. Likewise, there will be more planted. So again, all of these charges that are being brought up, these indictments, we see a lot of them coming up against Trump. We see some coming up against other people. We're probably going to see a lot coming up around Hunter. These are all about setting precedents. It's all about setting the foundations for more things to be built on and to come out. So those are like the proverbial seeds in there. So we want to also keep an eye on those things because they are setting the precedence of what can and cannot be done. If you're going to say Hunter can have this, then you've got to also allow Trump to have it. If you're going to deny Trump of something, you've also got to deny Hunter or Biden or whoever else, Obama or Clinton's or anybody else of the same thing. The rules have to apply both ways. So all of these things that are going on are the proverbial seeds that will lay the foundations for what can and cannot be done in there. So that's going to be really important when we're looking at that. We have to be careful, and what we're going to see is when people get desperate, when they're looking for control, when they want power and they're not getting it and they don't really have control, one of the things that they do is to try to push people to become impulsive. They try to, and they also act impulsively. And we want to be very careful of this. We don't want to be persuaded. We don't want to be pushed into something, especially out of fear or urgency, like, oh my gosh, if I don't do this in the next week, I'm going to miss out on it, or I'm going to have this penalty, or whatever the case is. And that pushes us into impulsive action. When we get pushed into impulsive action, we end up regretting those things. So think back all of the people who impulsively went and got the shot. And when they impulsively do that, and now they're starting to go, I think I regret doing that. I think I regret having this. And as things start to come up because they didn't think things through, they acted in that impulsiveness. So impulsiveness almost always bites us in the butt. It almost always will. And so if the corrupt wants to act that way, that's their choice. People always have that choice. But if we're working wisely, we will stay on top of that and say, no, let's not go down that path. So we don't want to rush to so-called follow orders, because most of those times, those orders that they're pushing on us are not to our benefit. Probably 98% of the time. I don't know the exact number, but probably it's high like that when somebody is imposing an order on you, it is not to your benefit. And the reason they're imposing the order is because they're trying to control. And it's not about benefiting humanity or your well-being or somebody else's well-being or supporting this group or helping people that are underprivileged. It's not about any of that. It's about control. So keep that in mind. We have to be very, very careful also, because what we're going to see pushed out in September is all of those people that have so-called charm and charisma. Now, some people say, oh, I don't think Gavin Newsom has much charm or charisma, or, I don't find him attractive, or, what's his Trudeau up in Canada or something like that. So they're trying to bring in these younger people that, have these different appeals, but we have to be very, very careful, because again, what's the charm? What's the charisma? It's like, oh, you'll help humanity if you do this, or you'll save the earth if you do this. Not one of those narratives have come through. Not one of them has been true. And that is what we have to keep in mind. And this is very hard on our kids, because they're weighing this guilt in, and they're being told all of these things that are not true. So we have to be very careful about those that seem charming, those that are working with charisma, those are working with that magnetic energy, and not just blindly follow them because what they're saying sounds good, or because they wrap it in a so-called pretty package. That's why these humanitarian organizations are going to come under fire in September. They have been wrapped in these pretty packages of, oh, look at what good you're doing to the earth. Look at what good you're doing for this and what you're doing. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for working with the earth. I want the earth to be healthy. But most of those groups are not doing that. They appear to be doing that. They say a lot of nice things. They speak a lot of fluffy language, but they're not actually doing it with, and that's where we have to be careful in there, especially if we're getting that impulsive push on there, or that persuasion going on in combination with that. What they're doing with this charm and charisma is they're seeking support for their agendas. And they know if they just came out and told the truth, they'd never have any support. The support would just be so far down. It would be almost non-existent, other than that 1%, 2%, 10% maybe that are involved in it. And so that's a big thing. We have to keep in mind that these charming aspects, these things that are being presented in charming ways, are there's ulterior motives. So we have to watch that. Truth is not always pretty. It can be a very harsh thing to deal with. And but at least with the truth, you know what you're dealing with. There aren't hidden ulterior motives involved with it. So we really have to be careful of these people who appear, people, organizations, structures, groups, probably will bring the WHO in. Now that I'm thinking about it, it'll probably bring the WHO back in as well into the limelight as a result, because they again appear to care, but they don't. You know, they want everybody to believe that the World Health Organization is for your health, and it's not. It's about power and control, and so we really have to be careful of these things. There's going to be a bigger desire, again, that desire for power is really surfacing. We may need to take some action against that, against those that are trying to seize more control and things. We're probably going to have to do some things to stand up for our freedoms during this time. So that could make things a little, as we say, hot out there, because people are going to have to speak their voice. They're going to have to come up. They're going to have to present the facts. That means coming back to some of the things about how we're going back to school. A lot of places, school's been starting up again, and parents are going to have to stay on top of things. They're going to have to go in and voice things, and they're going to, you know, they're going to be trying to remove the rights of people. And this does, when we look at humanitarian organizations, this very much can involve children. This very much can involve ethnic groups along the way. And you know, you're going to have to speak out. If you're in that group that's under attack, so to say, you're going to have to get in there and start presenting the facts. And parents are going to have to realize that there's a lot of places where they're trying to remove parents having any right or say over their children. They're trying to take the children away, basically literally through the systems. And we see that over and over again. They flat out have come and said it. You know, if you look at some of the talks that Biden has given, or even Harris has given, and they flat out come out and said, they're not your children, they're our children. And that doesn't mean ours as a community or ours as, you know, a neighborhood. That means the government. And that's a scary place to be. So it's something that we have to think of, and we are going to have to stand up to the tyrants in September. So get ready for that. Be ready to get out there on the front lines a little bit. Get ready to, you know, whatever your part is, wherever your niche is, if it's being impacted, get out there and say something. Get out there and bring it up, because a lot of these things, they are videotaped and they are filmed, and that brings it out into the open where they won't report on it. You know, where normally they won't report the truth. And if you can get on live camera, if you can get someplace and speak up in these meetings, then yeah, it's going to be there. It's going to be there, and you'll be able to get it out and bring it forward. And the last third of the month, or whatever, the last week or so of the month, we've got a lot of focus on closure coming in. We're preparing to start new cycles with things that truly do serve humanity and the planet. So again, we're also going to see the narratives out there, and we've got to separate the narratives from the truth. What is truly serving humanity? What is not? What is serving humans? As the Twilight Zone series says, you know, what is, you know, where are humans being served to others, and where are you know, where is humanity itself actually being served in the planet? So what we're going to see in that last week is a lot of attempts to break our spirit. And that's going to come through removing rights and freedoms. So get ready. They're going to try to start seizing those rights and freedoms. And we got to be ready to go on it. So we want to stay on top of things that are coming out. In the earlier parts of the month, we want to take a look at, okay, what are they honing in on? And get our proverbial ammunition ready. When I say proverbial ammunition, load those videos down, you know, save stuff on a drive where it can't be deleted, those sorts of things, and be ready to bring it up, and know what you need to do to maintain and hold your rights and your freedoms. Because once those are gone, that's it. Game over. Game over. We don't have a voice. We don't have a say. We don't get to choose what we have. We don't get to choose what we do. We don't, you know, you want to talk about human suffering, it would be nasty beyond what people have talked about that are considered conspiracies. So We really want to be ready for that in the last week. Also, our health energy is going to probably be low and vulnerable during that time, and technology is going to aggravate that. So we really want to think about, how can I minimize my time on technology? How can I get reconnected with nature? How can I take, let's make sure you're getting some extra rest, make sure you're boosting your nutrients. And again, be careful about those nutrition stores and things like that, because even though they provide supplements and things like that, and people think that those are healthy, when you look a little deeper, a lot of those health companies have been bought out by the corrupt structures. So those binders are not necessarily healthy that they put in a pill or a capsule. There's things in that. And if you're not reading and you're not paying attention, you won't see them. You won't see where those nanoparticles and mRNA technology is being used. And just because it's natural doesn't mean that it's pesticide free, doesn't mean that it's GMO free, doesn't mean, these various things. So again, get back to, the food in your own area. What is seasonal? What is fresh? Where are your farmers? If you had to take a day and drive a little out of town because you're in a city to get to a farm area and buy fresh produce that is organic, that is non-GMO, then that's what you need to do. So again, put the emphasis on that self-care, because if you don't, I think that the challenge with this, when we talk about world events and health things, is that's when they like to release the starts of viruses, of different things. We've had, again, we're going to see more things come out. So I think we could see some things being released, and it'll be one of those things that a lot of times we don't know it up front, but it's like they'll blame it on allergies or the shifting of the seasons or things like that, right? Because that's the end of September. It'll be like, oh, it's just the seasons changing. It's just the weather getting a little colder. Don't worry about it. In the meantime, you've got a virus spreading. And so that's where you got to take those steps to protect yourself. You need to boost your C's. You need to do these different things to take care of your own well-being, so that your body is strong enough to fight those off. It's got to have the rest. It's got to have the processing, and it's okay to honor that. It's worth a little self-care to not get sick. It's worth it to boost your immunity so it can fight things off in there. So we will probably that last week also start hearing about a lot of people are starting to get sick again. So you want to pay attention to that. Actions, what is really being set into action, really being set into motion. A lot of efforts are being made during September to bring a favorable future. Things are being done to lay foundations for what is to come. So we see that again on both sides. You've got one side planning for total one world order, structured one government, blah, blah, blah. And then you've got another side that is also planning for a future that's rooted in freedom, and that is rooted in people being able to choose what they want. And so you've got two different futures being laid forward. We still have a lot of different directions things can go, but the foundations are being laid. So again, we really want to watch not just what's put directly in front of our face, but what are the subtle little pieces that are coming out? What are the subtle things that are being initiated during this time, because they are about those foundations. So we've got efforts, and I think this is going to bring some positive things, because we're going to see the foundations being put into place that, look, if you're going to have biolabs, you're going to be held accountable for that. If you're going to do these things, you're going to be held accountable, and it's not okay. So we could see that coming down. We got that health piece, right? So if we see laws and regulations and things being put into motion against, for example, biolabs in countries, that is going to help lay the foundations for a favorable future. So that is a possible thing that could come up in September, which would be great to see. It'd be great to see that coming down on that. And that would also tie in with the humanitarian pieces, or things that appear to be humanitarian that are not humanitarian in there, again, because they'll come out and say, well, we have to research diseases when in reality they're releasing diseases in there. So I think that could be something that comes to the forefront when we look at how these, when you got the health piece and you got the humanitarian piece and these organizations and the fight for power and control and all of these things, and that is part of it. If we can get the pieces put down to stop gain of function research, to stop some of these things. So that tells me, yeah, Fauci could come back in the forelight, NIH could come back in that spotlight, and there could be some accountability coming through on that, because that is part of laying the foundations for a favorable future. We want to watch who completes and who doesn't, who competes, excuse me, who competes and who doesn't in things. When somebody knows their true value and worth, when they're truly holding power, they don't have to compete. They don't have to seize rights. They don't have to seize freedoms. They don't have to have major control over people, because they already have the power. They already know the value of what they're doing. Those people who are competing, they don't have the power. And really, these competitions are about that. It's about power, it's about fame, it's about fortune, it's about recognition being used to control people. And we see this a lot in the corrupt networks. They give them status, they give them title. It's like, oh, this is Dr. So-and-so. Well, they don't tell you that they're not a doctor of health, and that they haven't had any courses on the body or actual health. We see that in the WHO a lot. And, they give people these fancy titles to raise them up and make them look esteemed in the world and make them look like they're knowledgeable, when they're not. They're just titles, they're just status, and it doesn't even really mean anything anymore. So again, if people are speaking out against this, if people are, not giving creed to celebrities and people like that who have been built up, they have no power. They have no power over you. So we want to watch for that. We want to look for who is trying to get that spotlight in there. And that's going to, watch the people like Newsom, Trudeau, again, these young leaders that have been raised up through Klaus Schwab, and are, initiating a lot of these dictatorial structures and things, and watch for that, because they are going to be the ones that are going to be, you know, they can turn dangerous. They can turn dangerous quick, and you know, so they want to be seen as better than others. And again, when you're on that path of truth, when you're in that divine alignment, you don't have to be better than others, because you realize that nobody is better or worse than another person. That means that nobody has priority over another, and that is part of the structuring of the Constitution in the US. Everybody has the opportunity to go for something. It's always been that way. It doesn't matter what your race is or anything like that. There are equal opportunities, and I know that there's various layers and arguments within that. I get that. But when you start prioritizing one race over another, no matter what that race is or culture is, you no longer have a free society. You no longer have equal opportunity in things. And so there's a lot of deep layers with this. And so that is some of those kind of false things of, oh, look, we're helping this culture, but you're not helping that culture, because you're calling them victims. You're calling them less than other people to start with, and they're not less than other people. So again, we want to really watch where they try to put these hierarchies in, and do that. That's a big thing. And watch those people that are just like, hey, I'm no better or worse than anybody else. And see who's standing in what position. We want to look at who's being responsible and meeting their obligations to humanity and Earth. And those are tough choices sometimes, because sometimes we have to do things that we don't necessarily like to do, but they are the responsible thing to do. and they do help us support humanity. So, that's kind of like maybe we don't like cleaning the house, but we do it because we know it's going to help us stay healthy. We do it because we love and care about people in our household, and we don't want them living in dirt and filth and other things. And so there are aspects like that. So look at who is taking that responsible action, true responsible action, not just imposing and forcing things, taking rights away, but who's actually taking responsible action for humanity and the earth. And it might surprise you when you come down to it. A lot of false info coming out about what is and is not environmentally favorable or humane. So again, we're going to have to watch that. We got these humanitarian components, and we're going to have to watch the narratives, especially the climate narratives that are coming out, because that's their big push. That's one of the only things that the corrupt network has left, is to keep people in this climate fear. And again, if we come back to not one of these climate scares, not one of them has come through. And so they're going to try to implement removing a lot of rights under the name of climate change. So we're going to continue to see that pushed, and we want to stay up on it and say, look, oh, you know what, this thing that they're saying really isn't benefiting the humanity. If we take away every piece of carbon dioxide, oh, our plants can't thrive under that. Plants kind of need that. And if plants aren't thriving, humans are not going to be able to breathe, and humans are not going to be surviving. And, so when you start to think about it, it's like, oh, that maybe isn't such a smart idea after all. Again, I am very much working with the environment, but if we're spraying chemtrails and blocking out the sun, which they say we have to do in the name of climate stuff, you're not helping the earth. You're not supporting the earth. You're not supporting nutrients in your food. You're not supporting humanity. These are all things against humanity, not for them, and not for the well-being of the earth by any means. They're destructive to the earth. So we've got to look deeper. We can't just get wrapped up in that things there. Now, the thought patterns, the mental patterns in the first half of the month, again, a lot of attempts to persuade people. And what they're going to do is they're going to be really taking advantage of the people who are sitting in an unclear mind, who are lazy, who don't want to do anything, who do just want to sit back and say, yeah, give me money. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to earn anything. I don't want to go work a job. I don't want to be responsible, these sorts of things. They just want everything handed to them. These people don't realize the cost and the price that they pay for that. Realize that they're not just going to be able to be lazy and do nothing and whatever they want. They don't see that, but they're going to try to persuade people, and they're going to focus on those people that are wanting that. We're going to see a lot of weather manipulation situations coming out. You'll probably see a fair amount of power outages going on, storms going on in there. And again, this is about affecting the mental thing. So when we tie this into the thoughts or the thinking pattern, it is going to impact, again, the fear or the thoughts or what people are thinking when these things are coming out. So if you have a lot of power outages, that can start to spiral people in negative fear thoughts. In there. If you have a lot of storms going on, people get afraid to do things, they stay more confined. If you have the weather manipulation going on, people get wrapped up in the losses of their homes and storm damage and things like that. And so again, they don't pay attention to things that are going on. The choices that we make now, and this is why we have to be so on top of it, will have a major impact on our future. So we've got to be really careful, especially where there's confusion trying to be created, and there is going to be confusion, a lot of confusion put out there in this first half of the month to try to get people to make poor choices. And this is why I say, do not act impulsively. Stop and take the time to research something, really look at something, and really explore it further. Because they're going to try to push people to make decisions while the mind is unclear. Now, when we get into the second half of the month, our lessons, our experiences We want to interact with people to understand the experiences they're having, what's working, what's not working. And this is going to help us. The experiences that come up, the things that we experience in the world will be showing us what needs to be done, what is required to have success come through for us. We're going to see more people coming together, more people getting into the same mindset and realizing, oh, okay, we've had these different parts, but we both care about the environment, truly care about it. And now we're going to start seeing people come together as a team. And that is all about unfolding solutions and creating success for Earth, for humanity, for animals, for life. So we want to take a careful look at that. We are going to have a lot of power battles, and a lot of these are going to be psyops. The power battles that will be going on in the second half of the month will be mental psyops, but mostly between world leaders. So trying to psych each other out to gain power and control. And we're going to get, the influencers are going to get very intense. So here again, you want to sit back, let the facts come out. You're going to have a lot of influencers that are going to be pushing false information on both sides, So you don't want to just jump into, oh my gosh, this has 5 million views, and so they must be right. I'm going to believe them. No, you want to sit back and actually let the facts come out. And influencers are going to be heavily used to get into people's heads and to get their minds thinking in a certain way. So again, step back and say, this is being pushed like everybody's doing it, but it's probably only about 1% of the people this applies to. So stop and bring that thought back into your head. What else do we have coming in? Deaths. Deaths are coming in that second half, and that is going to be also a form of mental warfare on people. When we look at that, it's going to be happening in the name of getting or maintaining power. So it's like, oh, you don't want to give us what we want? Well, we'll just wipe out your community. We'll just send a storm over there and everybody will be devastated. These are the things you've got to be careful of. So these psyops, these deaths that are coming in, they're going to be made to appear like accidents. Oh, what a shame that that volcano erupted. Oh, what a shame that that flooding happened down there. Oh, what a shame that this fire started up. Most of these things that look like accidents are not going to be accidents. And usually when this pattern comes up, it also is, we see a lot of sudden suicides that seem to come up, and they're not suicides. We can think back, a similar type of thing would be like, oh, what a shame that that chef that used to work for Obama drowned, even though he had good swimming lessons and was familiar with the area and so on and so forth. So a lot of things appearing to be accidents that are not accidents. And so we're going to really want to, there's going to be a lot more to the deaths, especially the high profile deaths, especially the deaths that are connected to corrupt people. Like if you have somebody that's a whistleblower that's been exposing something, and then all of a sudden they're saying he committed suicide or something like that, come up. I'd question those. I'd definitely question those if if he's been blowing information on people, or she, as the case may be. So there's going to be more. There's going to be more. There may be some freak accidents, like, there's turmoil going down someplace and somebody's just caught in that place and time, like being in the wrong place and time, and an accident can happen. So we do want to be careful as far as any kind of protests, riots, or things like that at the last half of the month, because that could be a true accidental death that happens in there. Again, we had this kind of energy when on January 6th with Ashley Babbitt. That would be an example of it. So on one hand, not really totally accidental, but was accidental. Like somebody was going to go, but maybe they didn't know exactly it was going to be her as opposed to somebody else. These are the types of things. So we really want to take it with a grain of salt when they start saying there's a lot of accidents coming on. Again, that's another psyop, another cover up things. More attempts in the last part of the month to convince people to centralize and more attempts to get total control. So a lot of flowery language. You got to do this in the name of what's best for everybody or the planet or whatever. So really watch those things because it's going to be about that centralization. Again, a lot of deaths looking like accidents. I think Maui is an example of that. People were trying to get out and they were blocked. They were literally blocked by police forces and told they couldn't leave. So that's not accidental. That's not like, hey, I couldn't get out of the fire in time. That was, we are not letting you leave. And, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. So we really want to question the things that are coming up. A lot of big attempts to break people down. And again, this is going to be mentally breaking people down, hitting them to their breaking point to where they are so stressed and so worn out and so worn down that they can't think clearly. Now, as far as where we need to hold where do we need to hold our alignment? Where do we need to hold our soul energy? Those sorts of things. The first couple of days of the month, we need to stand up a lot. That means that we need to stand up to the bullies. We need to stand up to the abusers. We can do that without being in battle. So how do we do that? We hold our soul energy. We hold that divine connection. We might pray a lot in some cases, but we hold that divine alignment. We don't allow ourselves to be tempted, persuaded, pulled out of that alignment into things that are not favorable or work against having divine presence in the world or divine source or God, whatever your term is that you're using. It's about standing up for our rights and not just being pushed over by things. Nothing can hide in this time. So it is a really good time. And again, our best shield is the truth, is integrity. And that is the soul's energy. That's how we activate it. And that is one of the most powerful tools we have. And that is why they try to constantly attack it. We have to be careful of a misuse of power in there. And this is going to be used to try to, again, tempt people away, persuade them away from what is right, and turn people against the nonconformers. Well, who are the nonconformers? They're the ones that are trying to uphold divine presence in the world, that are staying aligned with God, that are not going with the narratives. And so we're going to see sabotage attempts against those people who are standing up for the rights during these first 3 months. This is going to come through a lot of disorder, a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos, a lot of creating fear, using threats of being unable to make it in the world. Look, you can't make it unless we go centralized. That's the type of things that we might hear from people. And that is about breaking people's spirits and saying, look, you're a failure, you're this. And that's those mind games. That's the psyops. Those are the pieces that try to break you from spirit. And if they can break you from spirit, they can break your connection with God, then they can gain control. And that's one of the reasons why they attack that. They want to get people to turn over their rights to the tyrants, and that's what they want to do. And we have to stand strong and say no. And there will be people that will cave in. People that we thought might have our back, that would be there with us, they may cave in, and that's hard. That's hard in the soul processes. It's not so much that they want to do it, but they are operating out of fear of repercussions and other things coming forward in there. So they're going to come down on hard on freedom and rights to make people as helpless as possible and unable to defend themselves. So when I see that energy coming up, I'm thinking those first couple of days of September, there just may be another attempt at gun rights. And we could see something come up where it's like, see, those nasty guns, we got to take them away. Look for those things. There could be something that comes up right at even the end of August that rolls in there, and they'll use that as an example. And then, right on that first, second, third day of September, we're going to have to take those guns. We're going to have to seize that. And again, this is about keeping people from defending themselves in there. So we really want to stand strong with upholding our divine principles, and holding an alliance with God, divine source. Because when we do that, when we hold that alignment, when we keep that focus, it does bring victory in challenges. And when we are willing to stand with that and we do not sacrifice it, and we say, fine, this is where I'm standing. If you're going to do your corruption, you're going to do your corruption, but I'm not going there with you. And remember, they can't execute things without our support. So if we uphold that connection, then they will not be able to implement things. We will see the victories. So this is actually a big part of where we see those victories in the first 2 to 3 weeks and where we get our hope and our optimism from in there. Now, the 4th, so most of the month of September on through the end of the month, we're going to see a lot of trying to cast out the non-compliers, the people who don't want to play in the narratives, who don't want to be part of the matrix. We're going to see a lot of attempts again to turn people against them. Again, our health is going to come under attack. The body is strongly connected to the soul self. Most people don't realize that, but it is strongly connected to the soul self. And so if they can wear down the body with disease, with viruses, with infections, with whatever plagues, malaria, whatever else that they put out there, and there's multiple things that are being put out there right now, then that also breaks people from the soul's energy because they get so wrapped up in the physical pain, the suffering physically, and they stop making that connection a lot of times in there. So we want to be very careful about that. If they can destroy the health, they can break the spirit. And that's what the hopes is from that. They do that by, again, disconnecting from the soul self and high pressure stress and anxiety. Those are going to be tactics used to break down the health. So if they put people under a lot of fear, a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, the body naturally breaks down. It's harder for it to resist diseases. It's harder for it to maintain its health. And then you release a disease on top of that, and you unleash something on top of that, it's very hard for the body to fight it off. And that's where it comes back to saying, you've got to stay on top of your health. You can't be doing all of these things that break your energy down or don't hold your immunity strong. So you've got to stand strong, get that exercise. You know, of course, some people really have to watch cardio now, but cardio is still a big thing and moderate it in and, you know, build very slowly on it. Again, some people can't necessarily do the cardio anymore because of various choices that they've made along the way. But there are other things that we can do with walking, with being outdoors, with having fresh air, with getting sunlight, with all of these different components. Again, the fresh foods and things like that that are very, very important, and getting good quality food, good quality rest are all those core pieces, and upholding that. And of course, the more rested we are and the better the foods and all of these things that we're doing, the more we're taking care of our health, the less that we eat things that are unhealthy, and the better our body can cope with the stress and the anxiety in there. They're going to be using a lot of temptations and addictions, really playing into people's addictions on things for control. So they want people addicted to whether it's a substance, a pattern, a behavior, acknowledgement, it can be all kinds of things, sexual things, whatever. And they want them addicted to these various material components, because the more addicted people are to things, the more controllable they are, the more that they can hold those and say, oh, you want your addiction? You want your fix? Okay, well, you need to do these things then. And that's it. So that's why they support the addictions, and they don't take those away from people. They take away what allows people to defend themselves, but they don't take away the things that destroy them. So they want them addicted for that. And that's, you know, that's no different than like in the pandemic, where some of these corrupt leaders came through and said, oh, just go get your shot. We'll give you free burgers or free donuts for a year, or this or that. And people are so addicted to those things that they would actually do it for that, which is insanity. It's insanity that you would do something unhealthy for something that is unhealthy that will destroy you. So again, it's about staying on top of all of these things. And again, the more they can throw people in addictions, the more that they can pull them out of their soul self, the more that they can separate them from being in the truth, being in integrity. And then they can also not only use that addiction, but they can use the guilt, they can use the pain, they can use the failure aspects on people to continue to break them from the spirit and the soul self. So there you go. That's what's happening. That's our world events. That's the plot. That's the plot. And again, if you haven't seen it, might be fun to go back and watch How to Serve Man in the Twilight Zone and see just how much that seems to kind of parallel some things right now. Hey, take care, everybody. Don't forget, you can pick up the 2024 book. This is what the 2023 looks like. The ebook version, if you want to check this out and just kind of get an idea for the content and what it's about and what it has in it, has been discounted. I discount it throughout the year on the ebook version, not the paperback version, but the ebook version. It's a pretty large book, as you can see. And that can give you a chance to check out the work if you want to check it out before purchasing another edition. But get ready; these books are valuable. They help you get through the world in there. I have many times I'm like, oh, that's what they're up to today. And I have many people that come to me that says, it's almost eerie. It's almost eerie how correct this is, how true it is, how spot on it is about what's happening. And that foresight helps to keep us from getting caught in these narratives. It helps us to understand who's playing who and what to watch out for. And when we do that, we can protect ourselves. We can stand up to the corruption. We can maintain our freedom and our right and our opportunity to create a favorable future that is truly favorable. Take care, everybody, and I will see you next month. I will still be on the road. I'll be in the South somewhere. Who knows where when I cut the video, but I'll be in the South somewhere because I'll be down in Texas area. And also you can look at the event happening under my media tab on my website, and that will tell you where I'm going to be, and you can connect up with me for some events if you want to. Take care.